Eternal Recurrence. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, says that he first conceived the idea of the eternal recurrence of all events whilst making notes in preparation for his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I was walking one day through the woods alongside the lake of Silver Plana, he writes, and I stopped beside a mighty rock that towered up like a pyramid, not far from Surley. It was then that the idea came to me. He made a note of it with the postscript, 6,000 feet beyond man and time. This was in August 1881. The doctrine of the eternal recurrence of all events was formulated by Nietzsche as follows. The sum total of energy in the universe is determinate. It is not infinite. Consequently, the number of positions, changes, combinations of this energy, although tremendously large and practically innumerable, is nevertheless also determinate and not infinite. But time, in which the universe exercises its energy, is infinite. That is, the energy is always the same and always active. Until this moment, an infinity has already elapsed. That is, all possible developments must have already been in existence. Consequently, the development at this moment must be a repetition, so too that which it produces, and that from which it arises, and so forwards and backwards. Everything has already been in existence innumerable times, inasmuch as the total arrangement of all forms of energy ever recurs. There are, of course, many objections to this theory, particularly that at the time Nietzsche was writing, scientists believed in a steady-state universe, whilst we now have the theory of an expanding universe with a big bang and possible collapse, together with the idea of multiple universes. The exact details of how eternal recurrence could happen is, in one sense, not important, since what Nietzsche is proposing is no less than a new form of immortality, which invests life with a tremendous quality. There is nothing trivial, there are no unimportant actions, for everything that the individual does will be done over and over again, forever and ever. It is eternal. As Nietzsche himself said, so live that you must wish to live again. Thus Spoke Zarathustra is written in a rather poetic manner, in some ways resembling the parables in the Bible, which gets over to the reader philosophical ideas in a way which can be understood by anyone. The following is an extract explaining the eternal recurrence. Behold this gateway. It has two aspects. Two paths come together here. No one has ever reached their end. This long lane behind us, it goes on for an eternity, and that long lane ahead of us, that is another eternity. They are in opposition to one another, these paths. They abut one another, and it is here at this gateway that they come together. The name of the gateway is written above it, Moment. Behold this moment. From this gateway moment a long eternal lane runs back. An eternity lies behind us. Must not all things that can run have already run along this lane? Must not all things that can happen have already happened, been done, run past? For all things that can run must also run once again forward along this long lane. And this slow spider that creeps along in the moonlight, and this moonlight itself, and I and you at this gateway whispering together, whispering of eternal things. Must we not all have been here before? And must we not return and run down the other lane out before us, down that long terrible lane? Must we not return eternally? During the course of writing this work, we're on holiday in the Scottish borders, not far from where the White Adder joins the Tweed. We are taking the dogs a walk to where there is a ford crossing the White Adder, and we're watching the dogs playing about at the water's edge. The The thought struck me that here was a perfect example of a partial application of eternal recurrence. Basically, water flows down streams and rivers into the seas, where some of it evaporates into the atmosphere to form clouds. After a time, the water then falls back to earth in the form of rain, where it runs into the streams and rivers once again. Thus it completes a circle. Now the seas, although containing an immense quantity of water, it is still a fixed quantity. The number of rivers is also a fixed number, and can be counted by anyone with a good atlas and a lot of patience. To return to that day by the White Adder, any particular molecule of water which flowed past on its way to the sea may shortly be rain, pouring down in perhaps Germany or Brazil, to again be reunited with the sea by way of the Rhine or the Amazon. Since the number of rivers is limited, a particular molecule will eventually flow down all the rivers in the world, many times over thousands of years. So as we sit by the riverside, the water will have flowed past many times before, and will do so again during the coming centuries. There is an aspect of this which was not covered by Nietzsche, because it was not known in his day, and that is DNA. It is the difference in DNA which makes each individual different to every other individual, except for identical twins. Although the number of combinations of DNA is immense, it is still finite. Also, as evolution takes place, the DNA alters over time for the whole population, and so there is very little chance of any particular DNA combination ever occurring again. The human race, though, is not now evolving. People are basically the same as they were 2,000 years ago. The apparent differences, such as a person's height, being largely due to better nutrition and health care, not evolution. We now, however, have a new factor to put into the equation: the vast increase of the human population of the earth. At the time of writing, it is estimated to be over 7 billion, whereas in the year 1800 it was only 1 billion. Now this figure of 7 billion may well be under the number of possible DNA combinations, and so there is not much chance of duplications occurring. But for how long? With each new generation there are millions more added to the world's population, so in a few hundred years we may, by pure chance, be getting duplicates of people who have already lived. I will not dwell on this aspect, as I find it rather depressing, implying as it does a lack of progress of the human race and a population which is increasing to the detriment of the environment and all other species. I will conclude this section on eternal recurrence by mentioning the people of Diaspar, featured in Arthur C. Clarke's book The City and the Stars. I have no wish to spoil the pleasure of reading this book by revealing any details, but can only say that as a person who is fascinated by this subject, it is one of the most inspirational books I have ever read.